I just helped runners in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s get pain-free, hit PRs without running more miles. I'm Dr. Ray Peralta, physical therapist and run coach. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did it and how you can run faster, stay injury-free, and train for life without breaking your body down and without becoming part of the 80% of runners who get hurt every year. So, and this is a big problem, by the way. Now, the numbers may vary, of course, right? Sometimes the statistics may show a little lower, a little higher. Like in this New York Times article, right? 9 out of 10 runners had to sit out of training every year due to injury. But regardless, I've seen this as a physical therapist myself. Every fall and spring season, a runner comes in, they're trained for a marathon and end up getting hurt. Many of them, are just adult beginners who start picking up the sport when they're adults. And many of them thought that, hey, I got to do more miles, right? I have to do more miles. I'm training for a marathon. I'm going to get better results that way. And then they end up breaking down their body. Oftentimes, they're busy. They're working full-time jobs, etc., have a family, and they skip strength training, right? Because they think, hey, I only have time for running. Or if those who do strength training, unfortunately, do it incorrectly, right? So many people think, oh, I know strength training. I just go to the gym, lift some weights. And then they end up doing the same weights month after month, year after year, right? Either they do them too light or they just stick at the exact same routine. They never progress the weight and they're not actually getting stronger. That's one of the big factors I see where they're not doing the right exercises. Their easy runs are too hard, constantly fatigued. They oftentimes ignore mobility recovery. They think, okay, I'm just going to try to run almost every day of the week. And who cares about recovery? It's fine. I'm doing recovery runs. But are you really recovering if your body feels more beat up and sore during the recovery run? So the result is they get plateau. They end up, having these aches and pains or niggles, and their injury they start getting these running overuse injuries, things like runner's knee, shin splints, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, hip pain, groin pain, all sorts of overuse injuries because their body's not giving enough time to recover. It's not just your age, it's not just, just getting older, but it's the way you schedule your programming, your routine, and how you train. Because it's not just about running alone. So many folks just want to focus on running, running is a great sport, of course, but you need to also look at the bigger picture, what goes into making you well-rounded so you could enjoy the sport of running without, being a statistic of the folks who end up getting hurt. So what ends up happening, maybe you get an injury, you rest to recover. So then you're like, oh, I think I'm good again, right? Heck, you may even been to PT for a few months. Okay, oh, I think the injury's fixed. But then you start ramping up the mileage. You're having a good days, keep doing these longer runs, ramping up, doing more and more miles, and then you overdo it. Then you get hurt again. Either the same injury comes back or some new injury pops up, right? And then you just get stuck in this boom bust pain injury cycle where you just keep getting injured every cycle, every time you're training away for a marathon or even half marathons. Obviously, the marathon is even a bigger distance, so the risk even increased there, just more miles with the full marathon. And if you want to copy this breakdown, a step-by-step plan to run pain-free, I'm sharing this on my free school community for runners. I'll link in the description. So what I recommend is something I call the athletic runner method. So start training like an athlete. No, you don't have to be an Olympic athlete to benefit from this. You don't have to even be competing in races, every couple of months, right? You don't have to be on a race circuit. You could be an everyday adult, someone who just wants to be fitter and enjoy running for the sport of it. But I recommend having this well-rounded approach, right? So the athletic runner method, one of for the run program, which makes up a lot of the meat and the potatoes, I recommend just doing 3 runs per week. Yes, can you run a little bit more? Definitely. But I found that most people, especially older injury-prone runners, do better with just 3 runs per week so their body can actually recover from the days of running. So you could do a long run, right? That's going to help build up your endurance, a tempo run or a speed run to improve your performance, whether you're doing intervals, doing steady state, tempo run, progressive runs, and then just an easy run, support your recovery and aerobic pace. Right? Focus on quality over quantity and just stop chasing high mileage for the sake of it. In fact, you could do a low mileage approach. For example, if you're training for a marathon, you can complete a full marathon with just 30 to 35 miles per week. You don't have to run, 60 plus miles per week. Now, unless you're extremely competitive, you're like running almost elite times, like around 2:15 marathons, so like very elite times, you don't really need to go really high miles. In fact, I've actually had runners complete 3-hour marathons on like 35 miles per week. It is possible, right? And now it's not just about running alone. We'll talk about that, the other parts that are needed to make you a stronger, faster running, but also more resilient and durable. The reason I like 3 runs is also because you have enough recovery days so you can recover from the impact of men's running. If you're more of a complete beginner, you could just walk 3 days a week. You do run, walk 3 days a week, or do 3 easy runs. right? That works as well, or if you're coming back from an injury. And then the other days a week, I recommend cross training. And again, it doesn't seem to be too fancy. You literally just walk as cross training. You could brisk walk, like, do a power walk or a speed walk. You could bike, if you have access to a bicycle, rowing, elliptical, different types of aerobic or cardio type of modalities that also build up your aerobic fitness. In fact, many times when I'm helping someone come back from an injury, I just say, hey, let's just focus on boosting up your ability to walk. Can you walk briskly? Can you walk a nice brisk pace and do that pain-free, injury-free? And then we'll start layering some run, walk, etc. But with cross training and walking is oftentimes underrated. So many people think, oh, walking is just too easy. You can obviously make walking harder. Do weighted walks, incline walks, speed walks, etc. And then obviously you can do bicycling, swimming for cross training. And it doesn't even have to be long. It just be, again, if you're pressed for time, you get a lot of the cardio benefits with just 30 minutes. So you do 20 to 30 minute run walk 3 days a week. 2 days a week, you just go for a 30-minute walk, right? If you're a complete beginner, you just press for time. So you don't have to spend that much time doing the training, just 20 or 30 minutes for the different types of workouts. And then strength training like an athlete, right? 2 to 3 times a week, you're going to do some lifting. And this can be combined with the cross training days. So you don't have to have a separate day for the strength training. The strength training, cross training can be done together, or even the strength training and the run workouts can be done together. You could maybe do the run in the morning, strength in the evening, or just back to back, however it fits your schedule. But anyhow, for the strength training, I recommend heavy lifting, right? Squats, deadlifts, lunges, right? Helps build your durability. Single leg work, split squat, the Bulgarian split squat, single leg squats, a single leg deadlift, steps ups, and yes, lunges are also single leg work as well, to help you fix imbalances, especially if you notice how you have a left to right like imbalance. Oh, your left, your quadriceps is a lot weaker, so maybe spend more time doing step downs or leg extensions, etc. And then also doing explosive work, right? This is things like jump training, box jumps, drop jumps, lateral jumps, sledge rags, power cleans, all sorts of like kind of fast, explosive type of work. And then you also want a progressive overload. You want to challenge yourself to get stronger over time. Don't just do the exact same routine and don't, add more reps, add more weight, right? You want to progress and get stronger over time. Otherwise, if you don't progress it, you're just going to maintain, or you may even start to decline if you're not paying attention. And many runners are weak, not just to overtrain, but they're not doing any strength training at all, or they do strength training, but they're not doing the right type of strength training to actually get progressively overload to actually build up their strength and the durability. And here's some additional benefits of strength training. If you're curious, okay, what does it do for running? Improves your running economy, so you're more efficient, right? So it takes you're more fatigue resistant, so your time to exhaustion, so you're able to run for longer, essentially. Your rate of force development, right? You have more power, so now you could actually generate more force. You could actually turn your legs over faster, so you could actually run faster. So if you're someone who's a bit slower runner, you're like, hey, I want to get faster. This is a great way to improve your running speed. Obviously, improve your sprint performance, so your maximal speed as well. And then obviously it makes you faster for the different distances, whether you're training for a 5K, 10K, your time trial ability to just run faster for longer improves. Same thing even for the half marathon and full marathon. Strength training has benefits across the board for different distances for running. And then I recommend daily mobility, at least 10 minutes a day. I think of it like brushing your teeth, right? You brush in the morning, evening, do your mobility work, at least daily 10 minutes, right? And people are going to have different areas that are tight on them. But I found as a physical therapist, the patterns I typically see are ankle mobility. A lot of times runners have to work on ankle dorsiflexion, which leads to better stride mechanics. Oftentimes have to work on hip extension, even hip rotation, open up the hips, reduce compensation. And oftentimes the hip is connected to the knee. So if you have knee pain, oftentimes improving the hip mobility. And also, just to be clear, sometimes you have to do hip strength as well. Oftentimes reduces knee pain. Thoracic mobility oftentimes can help with hip pain, even lumbar mobility as well, sometimes with thoracic extension, thoracic rotation. Also helps with breathing if you have difficulty breathing. And then but you want to target your problem areas, right? Don't just do, random stretches for 30 seconds and call it a day. You do have to do enough stretching. That's why I recommend at least 10 minutes per day on your tight or restricted areas. People's areas may be a little different than what I listed here. So again, if you don't know what you're doing, work with someone or a physical therapist, run coach to really dial in and see what areas you need to work on. And same thing with the strength training as well. And then a simple test, if you're not sure if you're mobile or not, try a deep squat, right? Go into a deep squat. You can see here a deep squat position. Can you keep an upright torso? You're able to get, your thighs kind of resting on your calves. Are your feet able to stay straight ahead or slightly toed out, right? If you could do a deep squat, we get mobility, right, good control, without any assistance, is actually a pretty good indicator that you have some nice global mobility. But if you start tipping over, you can't do the deep squat properly, it's also an indicator, hey, you might need to start working on your tight restricted areas, right? So now, it doesn't mean you're going to get the deep squat overnight. Heck, it might even take you years to get the deep squat. But if you start working on your tight mobility areas, you can make some big progress, and then even carries over to running. All right, but I like this as a simple test. If you're, a lot of times folks like, man, I don't even know if where I'm tight, where I'm stuck at, right? If your heels pop up, maybe it's your ankles that need to be worked out. Or if your back is rounding a lot, okay, maybe you need to start working on thoracic mobility or even your hip mobility. Or if your knees don't refuse to bend, then you actually need to work on knee mobility. And then you want to fix your movement quality, right? So can you do the squat without collapsing, without, falling over to one side, right? If you're doing a single leg deadlift, are you shaking all over the place? That's also an indicator of single leg balance as well. Can you just stand on one leg? Can you do a proper deadlift, hip hinge properly? Right? Because if you have poor movement patterns, that also leads to inefficient running. And then running's going to expose your weak links, right? Running is a high impact sport. Every time your foot hits the ground, it's 2 to 3 times body weight. So your body's not strong enough to handle the demands or the loading of running. Your body breaks down. You start developing these overuse injuries. Another thing that's important to factor is that recovery is part of training, right? Make sure you sleep. And that's going to help you improve your performance, reduce your injury risk. Because if you're sleep deprived, your injury risk actually increase. People don't even believe this is true, but I don't know why. But if you're sleep deprived, you're actually going to perform worse, and your injury risk increases. I've actually done studies. I believe it was like 36, like increase your risk of injury by like 36% when you're sleep deprived. And then stress, if you're even with works, or if you're constantly stressed out, your tissues are all wound up, you're like bunched up because you're all stressed out. That also increases your pain sensitivity, so you're more receptive to pain, right? And also slows down your recovery because you have so much excessive stress hormone like cortisol in the body. It also slows down your recovery. So make sure you do stuff to manage your stress. Sometimes it's actually things like meditation, breath work, and if you need to talk to a talk therapist, talk to a talk therapist, things like that to actually manage your stress better. And your easy days must actually be easy, right? So if, whether when you're training throughout the week, and if you need easy days, take an easy day. Don't actually push yourself to go hard. So for a lot of beginners, I recommend just doing easy run 3 times a week, run, walk, and just make them easy. Don't push yourself too hard. Or if you're coming back from an injury, because your body adapts to recovery, not doing really strenuous workouts. Yes, you need to go hard from time to time, but you shouldn't be training hard every single day of the week. And then longevity beats ego, right? So if you train for longevity, you're going to be able to enjoy the sport for long term instead of getting injured and then getting upset and then going like blaming the PT or the doctor for not getting you better when, hey, you just made some training mistakes. You did too much, too soon, too fast. You just need to let your body recover and follow a smart training plan. Right, so the results you're able to run with less pain or even completely pain-free when you follow the steps outlined prior. Improve your performance without increasing your mileage, without having, necessarily don't have to do high mileage, right? There are ways to, again, like you do a low mileage approach, even if you're training for marathons, even for ultra marathon. You feel stronger, more athletic, more durable, and you avoid the boom-bust cycle of injuries. So you build a body that you can run for life, not just for one race. Here's one of my former clients, Anna, who I helped overcome with hamstring pain. She was dealing with chronic hamstring pain, helped her get rid of it. Her pain was actually coming from her back. We did some back mobility stuff too that cleared up her hamstring. I even helped her with her Achilles pain as well. She went on to run multiple marathons here. I believe that's she's finishing up the New York City Marathon, and got her running stronger, getting her back healthy, and she enjoy running for life. Right. Now, I currently have a few spots open to work with me privately one-to-one to help you run pain-free and improve your performance. If you're curious, there's a link to apply in the description. First come, first serve. So in conclusion, running alone isn't enough. You need to train like an athlete. You need to be well-rounded. Look at the strength, look at the mobility, nutrition, sleep. Because more mileage isn't always the answer. Smarter training is. If you want longevity, you need strength, mobility, and recovery. Train smarter, move better, and run pain-free. If you found this useful, hit the like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.